Presented by ChurchTechU, it's the ProPresenter Show. On today's show, what's new in ProPresenter 7.5? Hi, and welcome again to the ProPresenter Show. This is the show where I tell you all about ProPresenter. My name's Paul Allen Clifford. So, as I'm recording this and releasing this, today is May the 4th. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, Renewed Vision announced the beta for ProPresenter 7.5. Then, a week later, they moved that out of beta into the release version. With that said, that night, when it was first announced, I did a training for my members of ChurchTechU, which you can see more about ChurchTechU at ChurchTechU.com, where we talked all about ProPresenter 7.5. Well, I had a couple of issues because I was away from the office and the mouse wasn't showing up and craziness like this. So I redid that training last Tuesday, so the day that it was actually released, and I thought, well, I'm going to create a short bite-sized tutorial for everyone. And then it occurred to me, wait, I've already recorded a large class, and maybe some people don't know that I do these on a weekly basis for my ChurchTechU members. So I thought, here's what I'll do. I will just go ahead and release that live class that I recorded last Tuesday, the 27th, April 27th, at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and show you just what one of these live calls is like. And as a bonus, you get to learn all about ProPresenter 7.5. If this is too much for you, it's about an hour long. Don't worry, I'll have a shorter bite-sized version of these tutorials coming up in future weeks. So without further ado, let's head over to the recording and take a look. Okay, so as you may have heard, ProPresenter 7.5 is now the release version. Last week when I was telling you all about it, it was because it was brand spanking new. In fact, I'm quite certain I had the very first training on ProPresenter 7.5, other than, stuff within Renewed Vision. So, very fun stuff. So, good to see you, Jim. Good to see Margie as well. So, we've got a good little cohort of people here tonight. Well, let me first start and let me answer Colleen's question here. So, if I make that go away, and let's see if I've got a web browser here that I can bring up. Yeah, okay, so if we go to churchmotiongraphics.com, I think it's under free. Text editor, blah, blah. I'm actually not sure where this is. Fonts, resources, fonts, right here. So if you click font download, it should download. Since I'm on a Mac, this should look very similar to you, Colleen. Free download. Okay, so that'll come in, and notice that it's a .zip file. So I need to show in Finder to find that, and then double click on it to unzip it. Okay, and then open it up. The reason it says 2 is because I already had that. Okay, so then I can choose which one that I want to do. So this actually has some stuff in it about CMG. Here's the all caps. So If I double click on this, notice this button that says Install Font. So I can click Install Font, and it'll go through the trouble of installing it, and then it should be available in ProPresenter if I were to restart ProPresenter. I don't think that it'll just show up there, but I guess we can go into, here, let me clear out that. We can go into here, edit slide. I'm going to be in here a little bit later. And let's see. CMG Sans. So it just has the regular one in here because I didn't actually restart ProPresenter, but that would be right where it is. So, yep, that's exactly how you would do it. So that's the answer to Colleen's question. And let's jump back in here and get back into talking about ProPresenter 7.4. Now, first thing you're going to notice, well, you may not notice it, is these icons down here used to be up here, and they've moved them down here. Personally, I would have left them there, but, you know, I'm not a programmer. I don't even play one on TV, so, or even the internet. So they're down here. So it used to be the case that we only had this as an option. We only had the audio bin. And a lot of people don't use the audio bin, and so that was a bit of an issue. They're like, well, this is all kinds of wasted space. I wish other stuff was there. Well, now you have the ability to change, so you can select your stage display layouts right here without doing that up here. We've got our timers, so we can add timers. We can do all kinds of stuff with those. We've got messages. I was dealing with that earlier. And then we've got props. So I can do that. Another thing that has changed in ProPresenter 7.5 is that props and messages have become their own layers now. So there are, in fact, 8 layers in ProPresenter 7.5, whereas in 7.4 there were 7. Now, props and messages you could clear individually, but you couldn't assign those individually. So that's kind of a big deal, because now if you go into screens and edit looks, you'll notice that instead of props/messages, which used to be right there, we have messages or props. So my portrait monitor, for example, I turned off messages because that's where my countdown was living, yet I could keep props on. So that gives you even more flexibility than you had before, and I think that's actually one of the biggest deals with ProPresenter. And we will get to some questions in just a second, Jim, so hold on. I want to cover this stuff kind of high level because last week I tried to cover it, but you guys couldn't see my mouse, so that just made it a lot harder. So next thing, if we right click, or you could have gone into editor and edit slide. Let me first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the text here, and you'll notice that it used to be that you only had text color as an option. Now you have gradient fill. So in addition to being able to fill this background with a gradient, you can also fill the actual text. So if I wanted to make this kind of show a little bit, maybe I'd change this to red, and maybe change this one to white, just so that it's kind of obvious that that's what I did. So it's a gradient that starts up in the upper left-hand corner and goes down to the right-hand corner. But we also have an additional option here. Use object bounds for gradient. So basically what that says is, instead of doing this within the text, starting with the dark red in the upper left-hand corner, going to full white in the lower right-hand corner of the text, it's going to do that within the bounds of the text box itself. So I do that, and you'll notice that this got pinker, and so did this. So the gradient is actually starting right here, and then slowly fading from the dark red into this lighter red right here, and then it ends over here. So it's not quite full on white right there. So that's something else that they changed. Another thing is that, where is it? Right here, they moved the capitalization from here to right here, so it's much more easy to find. Since it says capitalization, you're not searching for it, going, where is that? Now you know. And there is also the ability to, we can highlight part of the text and have it with a background. So let me see where that lives here. Text background right here under this gear icon. So this says, when you have the black/white, that's no background. So let's say we make it yellow. Not a pretty yellow, but a yellow nonetheless. So you can further highlight individual words even while you have the entire text box with the background, if you wanted to. Not saying you'll use that all the time, but keep it in the back of your head for when you do use it. So, couple other things. If we go into ProPresenter preferences and then advanced, I released a tutorial 3 or 4 weeks ago to y'all that was all about, I think that maybe my my advanced window is on my other monitor. Let me duck over here and see it. Yeah, it is. So I'm going to drag that over. Okay, there it is. So I released a tutorial not too long ago where I said how to keep the audio running, and while you've got a pre-service loop of slides, for example. Anytime that you had foreground slides, it would stop it. Well, with Pro7.5, you now have the ability to turn that off for either the presentation, the slides layer, or the announcement layer. And you can have audio ignore the foreground media or be cleared by all media. So audio layer ignores foreground media, so if foreground media plays, it just ignores that and keeps on keeping on. Audio layer is cleared for all media, foreground or background. I think that will clear it. Audio is cleared if media has audio. That might be a good use case for you. You know, if it's a video that has audio, you might want to clear it out in that case. Pauses and resumes for media, very powerful thing. That enables you to start the audio, it plays a video, then it resumes the audio in your pre-service loop afterwards. So that's a cool thing. And audio layer pauses, resume if media has audio. So these two are probably both the same, except this is probably the media layer, and this is if the media is on the slides layer as well. That's what I would expect that is. And we have those same options for the announcement layer as well. So that's something else really cool that they've added. Jim says, is it safe to assume that all the new options will use more CPU? Maybe. It depends on... Well, let me say it this way. Pro7 Quickstart, they're continuing to optimize things, so it could be that the optimizing mixed with the new abilities, it's about a push. I just haven't tested it to know for sure. So I think that would be worth looking into. Let's see here. There was something else that I wanted to say. Oh, I heard people say, well, if you wanted to upgrade to an M1 Mac, then you would have to not use NDI or use NDI in emulation. That's something else that they've fixed in 7.5. NewTek has released an M1 native version of NDI, and Renewed Vision included that in ProPresenter 7.5. So if that was holding you back from upgrading, that's something else that maybe is another tick in the maybe you can upgrade category. Personally, the thing that's keeping me from upgrading to an M1 Mac, well, there's two things. First off, 1 year ago I bought my computer that I've got right now. That's problem number one. Problem number two is I thought for sure that the iMacs would have dual output of video. Now, I've got the DeckLink Duo 2 card, so that's not a problem. But the problem for me is I'm now used to having 3 screens. So that's a bit of an issue. I think it's pretty well stated now that the M1 iMacs are limited in the same way as the MacBook Pros and the MacBook Airs and the Mac Minis that are all M1, in that there is a total of 2 screens you can use. In the case of the laptops, it's the built-in screen and 1 external. In the case of the Mini, it's 2 externals. So in the case of the iMac, it's 1 external in addition to the built-in screen. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I really thought that they were going to solve that problem. So anyway, that's something to keep in mind if that's not an issue for you. From what I can tell, the M1 Macs are very speedy. I don't know head-to-head if they're as speedy as Ryzen processors, but they're much better than Intel processors. So it's kind of hard to compare because there are no Ryzen Macs. So I can't say, well, the AMD Mac versus the M1 Mac, there might be some Hackintoshes, but yeah. Next. Oh, going back into Editor. So if we click on Edit, there are a couple of other things that they've added. So we have video input actions here and media actions that you can add directly from this. I didn't notice that those were there before, so that's something new. If I click on this and we go to linked text, I think there might be some new stuff there. Timers, system clock, text ticker still doesn't work. I really thought that maybe the 7.5 would have that work. Stage message you can display as a regular message. Video countdown, audio countdown, something that might be useful if your church does worship loops. Maybe you want an audio countdown mixed in. You can show the group. You can show the slide label, slide count, the name of the presentation. In this case, it would be 1912-12 sermon. So I could show that. I could show the playlist that it's in. Show if it's actually capturing, like for live stream or for recording or both. Auto advance time, how much time until it auto advances, and operator notes. So it can show all of those things here. So that's some cool features. I'm going to unlink the link text, and let's go into shape here and go to visibility, because I think that there are some additional visibility options as well. And this is something that I forgot to talk about last week. So if I do the timer, I can show the text while it has time remaining, has expired, is running, is not running. So that's something that I think may have been there already. Video countdown based on whether it's playing, not playing, looping, not looping, etc. I can show things. Audio countdown, if it's playing, you know, all the same stuff here, looping, not looping, all that. Capture session, show this if it's active or if it's not active. And video input, I can choose a video input and is that active or inactive, do some things. So I haven't figured out all the reasons why you might do some of these yet, but it's nice to see that we have even more capabilities here. So it's good to see you again, Charles, and I hope to see you soon. So, Doug, I will say that today I was looking at the remote app. He asked if it was working, and at first it did look like it was working, and then it wasn't. So I don't know if that was just a fluke or what. So that's something that I'll have to figure out from there. I think Jim had a couple of other questions, because that's most of the new features in Pro7 5. So I'm going to go back to his question. Let's see here. See if there were others. Okay. So, how to use tabs when editing a slide. I'm not sure that they've put tab stops back in, but let's see if we can find that out for you, Jim. So, go back over here, and I do know that we've got those markers, but yep, tab does seem to move things a few spaces at a time, but it doesn't actually enable me to add a tab stop, I don't think. So maybe T, no. Command T. No, that's font. Let's see what we've got under editor here. Text, no. Insert, yeah, no. So, no, it doesn't look like, as of yet, they've added that back in. So, while you can tab multiple times, you can't set specific tab stops. So that's maybe not what you wanted to hear, but I think that it's true. And Jim says, looks do not seem to retain any formatting at all. Maybe I'm missing a setting. So let's head into looks and screens, edit looks. So keep in mind that there's only one set of looks, and they're all listed here. So if you delete them or if you change them, that's the way that it'll be. So first thing I want you to do is make sure that you're adding additional look presets by clicking this little plus button right here under this, and make sure that you're switching between those. Secondly, I want you to make sure that any that you have that have the alternate icon might not look like this if you're on Windows. In fact, it doesn't. That would be one where I would expect that this would keep the formatting of this lower third new template, which I've just selected right there. And I would expect that when you shift between them, that it will still have that same one. But any that have the little Ghostbusters symbol here, if you change the theme in the main UI, of course it wouldn't follow that formatting wise. So I don't know that I've answered your question, so if you want to clarify that any more, Jim, then we could go from there. So, doesn't look like we've got more questions right now. I do want to address some that Colleen had earlier today. She was doing a funeral where they'd given her a QuickTime movie and music, and so she needed to play the music while the QuickTime movie was playing. So, assuming that you're not in 7.5, that movie needs to be either a background or on the slides layer itself, because when that's playing, if it was a foreground, it would overtake the music playing. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is so let me show you the setting here. If we go into ProPresenter and Preferences, and then I think it's under Advanced again. Yep, right here, Manage Media Automatically. If you bring media into ProPresenter and this is unchecked, then wherever it was is where it stays. So in the case of Colleen today, she was saying that the media was on a thumb drive and then it would disappear. Well, if you remove the thumb drive, the media went with the thumb drive. It didn't copy over. Now, if Manage Media Automatically is checked, it should have copied that into ProPresenter. But there is a situation where maybe it didn't. That situation is if you're on a Mac like Colleen is, and you've got iCloud Drive on, and your storage drive is getting a little on the full side, then it will upload that to iCloud, and then delete the local copies. So that can cause you problems as well. 742 also had a 742 also had an issue where the question mark logo would show up, normally indicating, hey, I can't find the media, even when it could find the media. And that was on the Mac, which I know that Colleen is on. So those are some of the different things that you've got to keep in mind with that. So Jim, for clarification's sake, said looks did not follow the main UI. Yes. So if you have an alternate theme, for example, he says bold, italic, etc., all came through without any formatting, including justification. All were stripped of that formatting and center justified. Yep. So the reason is that right now, let me make sure that that's still true in 7.5. But if you go into screens and edit looks, the alternate look overrides everything. Everything. There's no kind of include, like bold, for example. Just doesn't do it. Now there is a hack to get around that, and you might see part of it down here. Notice that I've got the exact same thing in the notes section. It's formatted a little bit differently, but it is in the notes section. And what I can do is I can create a theme where instead of looking for the information right here, it looks for the information right here. And I have the ability to, in the theme, change the justification of the notes section. And in the notes section here, I can change the color of the font. I can make that bold if I want to. So I do have some choices here in this notes section. And when I bring that in onto the main section of the slide, so if I had another text box here, let me show that. And I selected this as a link text, and I choose the type as current slide notes. Yes. Notice I've got preserve notes format here. So I expect that sometime they will add the preserve notes format or preserve format checkbox somewhere for themes, but I haven't seen it yet. And right now that's a bit of a hack. Notice that when I show this particular slide, we should see both of those on the screen. So, oh, that's because this theme is already set to not show that. But that's how you get around it. It's confusing, I know. I wish that they just had that checkbox there, like preserve the formats. Yep. As you say, Jim, if you're in 742, what I would do is I would check to make sure that I would click on the slides to make sure that it's still there, because that's just something they fixed in 7.5. But it could be that that's but I would also check to make sure that the media is actually still present. So, Colleen said, so would that box not being checked be what was causing ProPresenter to tell me that I could not import media from a smart list? Also, what is a smart list? Maybe. So a smart list, imagine that you had a special folder where even when ProPresenter is running, it is constantly checking what's in that folder. And anytime it finds changes, it changes it in ProPresenter. It also changes it when ProPresenter starts. So if you keep all your media in there, then when you start ProPresenter, if there's stuff that you've removed, then it won't show up in ProPresenter. So Jim says that he downloaded 7.5 on Saturday and still had the question mark. It could be the case that they haven't fixed that yet. I haven't seen that myself, so I can't remember all the circumstances, but they are aware, and if it's still cropping up, it wouldn't surprise me if it showed up, the fix showed up in 7.5.1, which I have no clue when that's happening, but it could be coming, so. So do other people have questions while I'm here? I could, trying to think of other things that I wanted to teach you guys and gals on. Other than 7.5. I guess it's worth looking at the Renewed Visions website to see if I've forgotten any of the new 7.5 stuff. So their website still says that it's in beta, but it's now the release version, so I guess the webmaster went home before they fixed that or something. So we have the gradient text fill, so you can see this gradient fill here. Told you about that. Show controls, that's in the lower right hand corner. We talked about that. Expanded layers, that the messages and the props layers have been split, so now they're independent. I told you about that. New editor tools, so we can do a text background color. Told you about that. They updated some of the UI. Told you about that. The fact that these are split here. Props and messages. Told you about that. Define the audio behavior. Told you about that. I didn't say new languages are supported. There are new languages supported, so that's something else. If you know someone that needs Chinese or Czech, for example, then you're good to go on that. Told you about the native NDI support. Oh, I didn't mention this, the in-app trial. I don't think that would affect any of us, but if someone is just getting into ProPresenter, they download the watermarked version and then they want to try it out, they don't have to go back to the website to request a code. They can do that from within ProPresenter. So they can, where it says not registered, I think it's just click start trial and then you put in your stuff here and then click done and then they'll send you the code. So yeah, Colleen said that she got a smart list message when trying to import media from thumb drive, music, just songs, and the slideshow. So I would suspect that maybe he was trying to import that into a smart playlist, and that was the problem. that it was having issues with that folder or something. So Jim said, spent hours on Saturday trying to debug an issue where pieces of prior slides were persistent. Finally found that I had a corrupted layout. Deleted and all was well, other than the 2 hours of missed sleep. That is certainly the case. Let me tell you my trick. Anytime something funky is happening, I always try this if ProPresenter just crashes, or if I'm doing something and it locks up. Always worth having another user on the computer, so another user account, and starting into that user account. Doing that will tell you immediately if it's a user file, like you have a corrupted layout, for example, or if it's ProPresenter itself, or I've also seen iCloud Drive, if you're on a Mac, cause that. That happened to me with the themes. Anytime I would change a theme, either in the looks menu, even if I would just change how the looks menu was, or I would create a new theme, any of that, what was happening is my storage drive on my computer was getting pretty close to full, so iCloud was trying to help me. Isn't that nice of it? It was trying to help me by uploading the changes that I made and deleting the local copy, and ProPresenter did not like that. So what I did was I cleared off my storage drive of old stuff. Then I moved my ProPresenter folder outside of the purview of iCloud Drive. I still wanted to use it for other reasons, so I didn't turn it off altogether. I just moved it somewhere where it was my local copy. So that's what I did, and that fixed it. So those are some of the things that I've seen before. It's almost never ProPresenter itself that needs to be re-downloaded or deleted and reinstalled. That almost never is the case. It's almost always a user file, or if you're on a Mac, the iCloud Drive thing. More often than not, it's a user file. So Colleen says, after updating to the last version before 7.5, my icon changes to just orange. You mean like this? That is the new icon. And the reason is that, as I understand it, Apple changed their policies for how the icons were supposed to look. So Renewed Vision begrudgingly changed it to go along with that. But, excuse me, as of 7.4, 7.41, 7.42, those three, it looks like that. So that is not different whatsoever. You didn't need to unregister and re-register. They just changed it. Juliet from Jack's, probably Jacksonville, or is it Julie? Oh, my old eyes. Anyway, how do you configure it so the ProPresenter reads the assets of an external drive? Well, let me show you. We go in. Okay. Depending on how I interpret that question, there's two ways to do it. First off, if you're importing it from an external drive and that external drive is always going to be connected to ProPresenter when you're running ProPresenter, then probably it's still safe to do preferences and then advanced, and then make sure manage media automatically is checked, because that will automatically copy it over to your ProPresenter folder. If you're saying, oh, I always use an external drive because my connected internal drive is too small and I'm running out of space, and that's just going to cause me problems. So you uncheck that. Just make sure that the external drive is always connected when you're starting ProPresenter. Otherwise, you'll get the question marks. So when you import new media in, so if I, for example, I think it's down here, this plus button, if I click here and go from Finder, and then I add my media here, if I had that checkbox unchecked, it would just link to that external drive, not actually copying it over. If I have that checkbox, the Manage Media Automatically checkbox checked, then what it'll do is it'll copy it over to the ProPresenter folder. So either of those would do that. It is possible to put the ProPresenter folder on an external drive. Most of the time you do not want to do that, but I will show you how, with the caveat that I told you most of the time you don't want to do that. And you can go to Preferences and then back to Advanced, and you can see where it says Support Files. You can click on that, and then you can navigate to where you want that folder to live. So when I moved my ProPresenter folder from my iCloud drive to a drive actually on my internal storage drive, I did this to find it on my internal storage drive. The problem is, though, if you did put that on an external drive and you fire up ProPresenter just for a second, just to check something, then what it's going to do is it's going to make its own ProPresenter folder on the internal drive, and that will cause problems for you, because it'll look like there's nothing there, and you'll probably be a little freaked out that there is nothing there. So that's why, while I tell you that's how you can do it, I would advise you not to do it. So I was teaching one of these classes, and I clicked on this, and then I navigated to something else and clicked OK. The next day I upgraded to the latest version of ProPresenter, couldn't find a thing, and I thought that this was probably 7.3, and I thought 7.3 had totally messed up ProPresenter, which didn't bug me because my machine here that I use is just for teaching. But I could imagine that on Sunday morning it might really freak people out. But it turned out that it was all my fault because I told it to move the folder to a totally different spot. So that's something to be very concerned about. So Colleen says, yes, okay, the website you just had up had the orange one unregistered and the other one was orange and blue, so I wanted to check. Yeah, so let's see here. Yeah. So that's a little confusing, but in fact, this is the new app icon right there. And this is the old one, so they just haven't updated it everywhere. I think they actually prefer this one, but Apple made them change to this, so that's why, so that they could follow their guidelines. So anyone else have questions? And Julie, I'm gonna look at this. Okay. Juliet. The T and the F were right next to each other, and I've got an astigmatism. So they were blending in together. I probably need to have my glasses upgraded anyway. It's been a couple of years. So do that soon. Let's see here. Anyone else have questions or comments? We have been going just shy of an hour, so I can let you go if we're done, but I don't want to shortchange you if we are not. So, let's see here. Anything else I wanted to tell you? Should be the case that I can edit this pretty quickly. Juliet says your gradient flow blue backgrounds are luscious. Are they from Church Motion Graphics? Yes, they are from Church Motion Graphics, and I'm glad you asked. So, if anyone wants to join Church Motion Graphics, I do have an affiliate code, and that is TDM.fyi/CMG. And that doesn't cost you anything extra. It just, helps me out. Jeff and his company over there, they're great people. I've met Jeff in person back in 2016, and he just gets better and better with the stuff that he's putting out there. So, fun stuff. So yes, these three backgrounds. Where is my mouse? Need to bring it over. Okay, here we go. These three backgrounds here are all for Church Motion Graphics. These were the from the Easter pack, I think. It's interesting that that is doing a fade through black. It shouldn't be doing that, but I wonder if I go into Inspector here and go into Properties, Stretch to Fill, Transition Fade, that's why. That needs to be default. So, now if I go back, yeah, that fixed that. Forgot that I'd changed that. Anyone else have any questions or comments? By the way, how was everyone's week? Everyone do okay? Did you get to use any of the stuff that I've taught you recently this past weekend? By all means, let me know that. I'd love to share it. If there's anywhere that I've helped you in particular, please let me know. It's always great to hear the encouragement of people saying, oh yeah, I learned this thing, or oh, I didn't understand this thing before. So, I'm really enjoying that I get to do this. I know I keep saying that, and it should go without saying because I created this job, that this is a job that I love. But I thank you for enabling me to do this, enabling me to help you and your church. There are just shy of 200 churches that are involved in all this, and I recognize that not everyone can be here every week, or we've got our regulars and then some others that come and go, but I'm just excited that you could be here tonight and that I could spend this time with you. Feel a little maybe like Mr. Rogers. Thank you for being my neighbor. It's just me being a little silly. So, Jim says that he used the hack for more lines on projection versus on screen. Great. And Debbie says she's loving these classes. Colleen says today was the first day I have put anything in the audio bin and put in a video and it worked, power of lots of prayer before trying it. Absolutely. No one's born knowing this stuff, right? So don't feel bad if you have to learn. That's what we're all on the journey to do. Bobby Dunn says, I don't get to join often, but I made it tonight. Thanks for the class. You're welcome, Bobby. Great to have you. So, I was talking to, on the ProPresenter users group, there was someone who was looking for someone to do some training in DC. So I'm talking to him, so we'll see if I'm going to be doing some training in Washington, D.C. or no, and we'll go from there. And I just want to thank, I'm just excited that I could do this with you. And if anyone wants to have me come out to your church and train your team live and in person, I can do that as well. Debbie says, I just used what you taught us about the countdown timer on the messages layer this past Sunday. Woohoo! So glad to hear that as well, Debbie. So, well, it is right around time for us to be done. So I'll go ahead and end this. Thanks once again for taking some time to hang out with me virtually from my little office here. And Colleen says that I'm more help than I know. Well, I'm always striving to be more help. So, oh, Juliet says, hey, I have a question. Does your Pro7 cut to black when the background reruns? No, it should not. Let me change backgrounds, and we'll watch this progress bar here. And actually, let me click there, and it should be the case. No, did not cut to black. I've got that set to loop, and I've got the transition set to dissolve. If it was set to cut or if it was set to dissolve, it should not go through black. Let me try this. I'm going to go into Inspector here, and I think it's under Effects, no Properties. And so instead of the transition, I'm going to go to Fade, because Fade you would think is the same as Dissolve, but it's a fade through black. So let's click on this, and so let's see what happens when I do that. Go to the end, and no, it didn't do that. Only when I clicked on it again, or when I went from another background to that one. So do make sure that it is not on fade unless that's what you want. So I'm going to click remove there, and that takes that back to default. And it should be the case that now when I go there, it's fine. So no problem whatsoever, Juliet. I'm excited to help you, and we got started a couple of minutes late anyway, so it's no big deal for me to stay a minute or two later. So, any other questions? I'll go ahead, I'll take one more drink of water just in case someone has one, and if not, we'll call it a day, and we'll reconvene next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, Juliet says that she needs to make sure it's set to loop. Yep. See, notice how down here it has the loop little icon. Right click, and I can go into, well, behavior sets it as background, but under playback, loop is normally what you want if it's a background. But if it was like nature footage, for example, or something where it didn't seamlessly loop, you can do a soft loop. And what a soft loop does is it kind of like adds a cross dissolve at the end. And notice that we have some choices for how long that is, but that's what soft loop does. Okay, so I think that will be the last question of the day, and we'll go ahead and I will see you next week. Talk to you later. Bye. Well, I hope you found that helpful. As I said, that's a deep dive. You saw that there were some questions at the end that I was able to answer, etc. So, if that's something that interests you, then by all means head over to ChurchTechU, just the letter U, short for university.com, ChurchTechU.com, and you can join there. If you'd like kind of a taste of what it's like, you can join my Pro7 Quickstart course. So head on over to TDM.fyi/Pro7Quick, put in your name and number, or email address, not your number, and then I'll get you a login for that course, and you can just get a taste of what it's like inside ChurchTechU, both with the bite-sized tutorials and with the one that I just showed you. Until next time, this is Paul Allen Clifford from TrinityDigitalMedia.com and ChurchTechU.com, reminding you to go out and change eternity.